cutting off my family after they missed my graduation for my golden child sister, only for them to reach out when my dad was dying, and his last wish was to support my jobless sister. Hey there. So, 10 days ago, out of nowhere, my family reached out to me after a decade of complete silence. I'm 31 now and had cut ties with them when I was 21, right after college graduation. The backstory is kind of rough. My twin sister, Rebecca, she's just 12 minutes older than me, has always been their golden child for reasons I've never understood. Growing up, no matter how much I tried to outshine her, whether it was in school, sports, or even hobbies like art, they always favored her. I thought excelling might win me some of their love and attention, but it just made things worse. They probably thought I was trying to outdo her on purpose, but I just wanted the same affection she got. Rebecca could get anything she wanted and had them wrapped around her finger, while I was always told I was acting entitled. Even for college, while she took a random gap year that turned into 3 and didn't even go eventually, I got into a good business school and needed their financial help. They told me to take out a loan and fend for myself, which stung a lot. During college, I barely kept in touch with them and only went home for the holidays. By then, I had emotionally distanced myself to avoid more heartache. Near graduation, I invited them to the ceremony, but got no response. Calls, emails, everything, no reply. Later, I learned they missed my big day because it clashed with Rebecca's first day at some local art classes. That was my breaking point. It became clear I was a non-entity to them, so I decided to cut them off entirely, blocking them, and my sister felt like the only way to protect myself. Life after cutting ties wasn't easy. No financial support meant I grabbed the first job that came my way and worked hard to prove I could make it on my own. Thankfully, I had amazing friends who supported me. Now, I'm in a much better place, both financially and mentally. For the past 5 years, I've been working at a vegan products company, and I'm even thinking of launching my own business in the vegan market soon. I've been really into studying the vegan lifestyle, though I'm not vegan myself, and I see a huge potential there. I've spoken to a few folks interested in joining me, and we're in the planning stage. But then just last week, I got a message from my family out of the blue. They told me my father was on his deathbed and I should come see him. It's been 10 years since I've talked to any of them, so this really threw me for a loop. When my dad reached out to me and I found out he had been battling cancer for the past 3 years, I didn't hesitate. I dropped everything and rushed back home. Sadly, by the time I got there, it felt like it was already too late. My dad was in bad shape and there was no turning things around. I think in a last-ditch effort to make things right, or maybe to just talk about my sister, my parents invited me to visit him one last time. Walking into that hospital and seeing my dad like that nearly broke me. My mom hugged me, and honestly, it was one of the most painful moments I've ever experienced. All my past grievances vanished, and I was just consumed with worry about whether my dad would pull through. Rebecca, my sister, was also there, but we didn't speak. She didn't even try to interact with me. She just sat in the corner, making a face the whole time. My mom and I talked about my dad, but Rebecca acted like I didn't exist, which was super annoying. So I ignored her too. Honestly, I can't stand her, and I have zero interest in what she's doing. No one in the family seemed to mind our cold behavior since they knew the kind of relationship we had. This all happened just a week ago, and 2 days later, my dad passed away. Everyone knew he wasn't going to make it, so my mom and sister had already handled the funeral arrangements. Everything wrapped up quickly, and I was able to come back home. But before leaving, I got roped into something I really didn't want to do. On the second day of my visit, Rebecca had gone home because she was exhausted. It was just me and my parents in the hospital room, and they started asking about my job. I didn't think much of it because, my dad was on his deathbed. I told them I had been working at a successful company for the past 2 years and was doing well. They listened, congratulated me, and then switched gears to talk about Rebecca. They said she'd dropped out of community college in the first few months, didn't have a degree, and had pretty poor grades in school. She hadn't done much until she was 25, and when she finally started looking for work, she couldn't hold a job for more than 3 or 4 months. She'd come home and complain that the jobs were too much and didn't pay enough, even though they were paying her what she was worth without a degree. My parents had tried to make her understand that her excuses wouldn't fly in the real world. They fought a lot trying to get her to be independent, but she didn't seem to care about her future. Rebecca quit her last job about 6 months ago and has been sitting at home doing nothing since. My parents were really worried and wanted me to take care of her after my dad was gone. My mom, nearing retirement, couldn't keep supporting her. I didn't know how to respond because honestly, my dad was suffering, and I didn't want to break his heart after finally reconnecting after 10 years. I explained that I was planning to start my own business, so it wasn't the right time for me to take on such a responsibility. But my dad argued that they had already spent a lot on his medical expenses, and his priority was my mom's comfort. He was counting on me to look out for Rebecca, and he kind of forced me into agreeing to take care of her until she was financially stable. So I promised to put my business plans on hold and look out for her, even though it wasn't what I wanted to do. I had no idea how long it would take, but I still said yes. The thing is, I just couldn't say no to a man on his deathbed, even though he had put me through a lot in the past. It felt uncomfortable, and maybe it was kind of stupid on my part, but who could have reacted differently in my shoes? If someone else managed to stand up to their parents in such a situation, I'd say they're really strong. But I'm just not like that, so I ended up agreeing. I wasn't thrilled about it, but what choice did I have? My dad seemed to be nearing the end, and I couldn't refuse a dying wish. They filled me in on what my involvement would entail. My sister Rebecca was dating this guy from school, Jared, and was planning to visit him. He was working in another city within the same state. I couldn't understand why they didn't visit each other more often. Jared had a job and could easily come to see her. But no, they were doing the whole long distance relationship thing. Now, I knew Jared from school and the kind of person he was, so I immediately had my doubts about him being good for Rebecca. My parents told me that Rebecca and Jared had been talking for the past 2 years, mostly online, except for a couple of weeks during the holidays when he visited. Jared wasn't exactly known for his strong values regarding women. Back in school, he had a reputation for flirting with every girl he talked to and had been caught cheating multiple times by his high school girlfriends. After graduation, I lost track of him, but I heard from some old friends that he had already gone through a divorce, also due to infidelity. I tried to explain my concerns to my parents, but they were convinced Rebecca and Jared were a perfect match. They'd seen them together during his visits and thought they looked deeply in love. I had a bad feeling, especially with the long distance aspect, which gave Jared plenty of opportunities to cheat without getting caught. Rebecca was completely in the dark about this. My parents wanted me to pay for Rebecca's flight tickets to visit Jared soon, thinking she'd need someone to lean on after our dad passed. My mom would be busy with legal matters and I'd be back at work, so they wanted Jared to be there for her. I warned them about Jared, but they were dead set on the idea that Rebecca and Jared would eventually get married. They even hinted that I'd need to take care of wedding expenses in the future. Talking sense into them felt pointless, so I reluctantly agreed. After Dad passed away, I pulled Rebecca aside at the funeral and tried to warn her about Jared. I knew his Casanova behavior well and didn't think he was good for her. She brushed off my concerns, saying Jared had changed, and they were deeply in love. She believed he'd never cheat on her. She thanked me for my concern, but told me she only needed financial help, not emotional support. That stung, and I decided to respect her wishes. Dad only asked me to look out for her financially, so I focused on my work and kept an emotional distance. After the funeral, I returned home, and it's been a week since. 2 days after the funeral, Mom asked me to book flight tickets for Rebecca to visit Jared, and I did. I didn't check up on anyone after that since I got busy with work. Yesterday, I was surprised when Rebecca showed up at my doorstep. She'd taken a bus from Jared City because she was too embarrassed to call and didn't want to go home. She could only afford bus tickets, so that's how she got here after traveling for 10 hours. She looked exhausted and burst into tears as soon as I opened the door. She admitted I had been right about Jared. She had planned to surprise him, but when she showed up at his place, she found him with another girl. She confronted him, asking who the girl was, and he told her to mind her own business. So here's the deal. He told her they weren't exclusive and he could do whatever he wanted when he wasn't hanging out with her at home. Naturally, she was furious because, in her mind, they'd been together for 2 years and she was fully committed, even thinking about marriage. It was a major blow to her, and they ended up having a massive argument right there in his hallway. In a fit of rage, she grabbed her duffel bag and swung it at him. Unfortunately, one of the chains on the bag caught him in the eyebrow, and he started bleeding like crazy. She freaked out and bolted, making a run for the bus stop and hopping on the first bus she could find, which brought her to me. She was super shaken up and asked for my help. She said she was ready to learn how to be independent and turn her life around, and figured I was the best person to teach her since I'd been doing the whole independent thing for almost a decade. She knew I was about to start my own business and hoped I'd take her on, not as an employee, but as a partner. It was a lot to take in, so I asked her if Jared planned to press charges against her. If he was, I didn't want to be involved because, regardless of his behavior, getting physically violent was wrong. She couldn't just run away from that. That's when she confessed she hadn't managed to escape after all. Jared had pressed charges and she had to pay a hefty fine. She came to me desperate, but I told her there was no way I could help her out. I made it clear she needed to go back home because I didn't want to get dragged into her mess. She was upset and reminded me of a promise I'd made to our dad before he died, but I told her that promise didn't mean much considering her reckless actions. I had my own business to think about, and I didn't want her to be a part of it because she was too much of a liability. The least I could do was book her a ticket home, but after that, she was on her own. I was done dealing with family drama. It had only been a week and she had already messed up big time. If she had just listened to my advice and stayed away from Jared, none of this would have happened. I told her to head to the airport with the ticket I bought, and she couldn't argue because I was already booking it. A few minutes later, she took a cab to the airport, and I thought that was the end of it. But of course, now my mom is furious. She thinks I should have been more supportive and taken my sister on as a partner in the business to help her straighten out her life. She believes I missed an opportunity to do good and instead acted selfishly. I don't see it that way at all. I booked her a flight home. That was enough help. She has to deal with the consequences of her actions with Jared, and that's not my problem anymore. Mom keeps calling and messaging me, reminding me of that promise to my father and saying I'm not living up to it. I'm just done with it all. I blocked her because it was really stressing me out. I don't owe anyone anything. Yes, I made a promise to my dad, but I was pressured into it. It wasn't something I truly wanted to do. Even most of the people I talked to said it was manipulative for my parents to contact me only when my dad was on his deathbed. They only reached out so I'd help Rebecca after my dad was gone. It sucks because even though he was my dad, and it hurt to see him go, the way he manipulated me into doing something for the golden child of the family left a bad taste in my mouth. Honestly, I don't even know how to feel about him anymore. I don't really miss him since all they ever cared about was her. I've never really had a good relationship with any of them, and for the past 10 years, we haven't been in touch at all. It's been pretty disappointing, and I feel kind of let down. I guess it was my mistake to think that things could ever change between us, or that my family could ever care about anything other than my sister, but it's clear now that that's never going to happen. I mean, I have so many things I care about that have absolutely nothing to do with her, and that's what I'm going to focus on. I'm diving into starting my own business now, and nothing's going to stop me. I already lost focus once, and it was a total mess for me. I'm not letting that happen again. Oh, and an update. Rebecca reached out to me today. I guess I'd forgotten to block her. She texted me saying she managed to pay off the fine and didn't need my help anymore. She also mentioned that my mom was super disappointed and never wanted to see me again. Honestly, that's fine by me. I didn't want to see them either. They only wanted me around for my money, not for who I am as a person. They were never going to regret treating me like crap all my life, and I knew that. So after reading her message, I didn't even bother replying. I just blocked her. I'm totally done with this. And another update, it's been a couple of months and I just wanted to check in and let you guys know how my business venture is going. The business model is almost complete, and so far, every investor I've talked to is super interested. I think I'm going to quit my job and hand in my resignation in a couple of days because I'm finally ready for the next chapter. I'm no contact with my family again, and honestly, things have never been better for me. Going no contact with them again was the best decision I could have made. And this business, this is going to be my new family now.